things that you might have thought about building don't apply here. You can't, this is just like using a piece of string. Really, you don't want it to say, well, my bale is 95 centimetres or 92 centimetres. All you can say is, my bale's that long. I can't say to you, can you go and find me a bale that's 95 centimetres, unless you've measured it yourself. So if I've got a space, I could say, will you go and get me a bale that fits there? You could do that. But I can't say, get me one that's this length, because your measurement's different to my measurement. Because it's a natural material. So it's not a block that's regular, that's come out of a machine. Well, it has come out of a machine, actually. But it's still natural and it's still being itself. And this brings us to one of the first things about building with straw. So could I just have a bit of a hand to lay these 4 bales out in a row, please? Turn it that way and against that. And this one. Okay, so we're imagining that this might be the wall of our house. Yep. Which will make nice and straight. Now, I would like you to come and have a look at this, because if I built a house just like this, people say straw bale houses are really well insulated. If I built it like this, it's not, because I've got some quite big spaces here which don't have any insulation in them at all, where I can get my arm in, even though they're pushed tight. And this is one of the big problems that people make when they're coming to straw building. They've heard the hype and they say, oh, it's cheap, it's quick and easy, and you can throw the walls up in a day. Which is true, you can. But what you're going to get at the end of that is a house that is not very well insulated. Because you've got to understand how insulation works and the nature of the naturalness of the straw. So if we just take these bales as they've come off the field and shove them together, we end up with these gaps, which are usually where the strings are. Because the strings are tight, they pull the bales together, and you end up generally with a shape that's like that and like that. So when you put this bale next to another bale, the high points hit each other and the other points are full of air, which is not insulated unless it's enclosed. So can you understand that just doing a quick wall like this is going to be fun and exciting, but it's not going to be a thermally efficient wall? Yeah? So the first thing we have to do is learn how can we make it into a thermally efficient wall, which takes a little bit of work. But what we have to do is look at the bale as an individual, like we do with all of you. We're all individuals, we're all a bit different. So are the bales. And this is where being a hairdresser would help, because you're thinking about what have I got and what do I want it to look like. Yeah. So what I've got is a bit of a rounded bale, and what I want it to look like is something that's completely flat on the top, or as flat as I can make it. So that when I put this bale next to that bale, I've got two flat sides that come together like that, and I don't have any insulation gaps. That's what I'm aiming for. Yes?
Could you just put them together and then snip the strings off so that they automatically...
No, it would collapse.
Right.
Yes, you could do that, and they would fall apart. So if I put these together and snip the strings, it would fall apart. It might not fall apart straight away, but as soon as I started trying to put plaster on them, you'd have a lot of movement on it. There are some techniques where you do that between frames of timber, but I prefer the most simple way. As you'll get to know me, you'll find that I go for simpler ideas. So I don't tend to use timber between the straw, because there's no need to do that. It's just an extra thing. It gives you a bit more peace of mind if you don't trust the straw. But I do trust the straw. I've been working with it a long time. So to make this flat, what I have to do is understand what I'm looking at first and what I've got to change. So it's rounded like this. So I want to make the corners more square. So to do that, I can pull the straw physically. Yeah. My beautiful assistant here will do the other side. It's easier. These things are easier with teamwork. And pull the straw towards you from the middle to the edge, both sides. And it's harder when you've got very tight strings. Okay. So at the moment, so we've done that, so it looks pretty rough at the moment, doesn't it? Yeah, that first stage. So now what we have to do is look at it in this direction and say, well, that's now high in the middle because we've moved everything here. The only thing we can do with that is take it out. So I'm going to take that out, and I'm being careful not to take it out from underneath the string.
So essentially you're breaking the middle bit out.
Yeah. And I'm going to encourage the edges to be more square. Okay, and then so that's a lot flatter now than it was. And you can see that if that was pushed up against another bale, these bits which are just squashy would squash down, and we've got a much more regular surface which will make a very well insulated wall now. So if we put this back in the line, it's better. It's not perfect because we haven't done this one either. So you can see how on a building site what we'd be doing is dressing the bale, and that's one of the first things we do. Is we all come together, we all have our bales, we've got a partner to work with, and we're dressing our bales, and we get 50 bales set up, and in the meantime we're getting to know each other, we're swapping life stories and what we have for breakfast and all that stuff, and it's all very fun and exciting. So obviously we're just going through this very, very quickly because we've got to move on. So once we've dressed the bale like that, other things we can do with it, so we can use it in its length to build the wall, but when you put the bales together, they go together like giant bricks. So say we had a door there and a door there, we could have 4 whole bales here, but on the next level up, we don't want to have all the bales sitting on top of each other, because that would mean we've got joints going all the way up, which is not great for stability. You don't do that with bricks or stone, do you? See, with the stone, you always make sure that you've got an overlap, and with bricks, you make sure that the overlap is half of the length of the brick, and it's the same with the bale. So, if we were going to take this bale, that would be where the next bale went to. So we're looking for the joint to be about halfway on the bale above. But if that's our door, that means we've got this space, which is not a full bale. And that's where our highly technical baling needle comes in, that we can make a half bale to fit this space. So because they're going together like bricks, then you're always going to have half bales on every second layer, wherever you've got openings for windows and doors, always, because that's how brickwork goes as well, to keep it solid. And you're always watching that your joint is coming about halfway. It doesn't have to be exact, we know that from measuring. We don't have to be exact to the millimetre, but by eye you should be able to see that it's about halfway. If it's a little bit that way or a little bit that way, it doesn't matter too much. But yes, it should never be less than 1/3 of the bale. So that's your limiting parameter. The other thing we do when we're starting, the first layer of straw sits on a timber plate usually. And in that timber plate we have short lengths of pointed hazel. Little hazel sticks about that diameter, and they stick up underneath the bales, and we embale the bales on them, and those stop this sideways movement of the straw when we're first moving. And then when we build up to 4 bales high, which is about here generally, we also have long hazel pins that go through the bales, 2 in every bale, that go down and they overlap with the ones in the base plate. So we end up with a very strong structure. And then the straw itself, especially these really solid construction bales, are plenty strong enough to hold up the weight of 2 or 3 stories without needing a framework. So their straw is incredibly strong, and what you should really do is think about straw as little pieces of wood, all packed together, tight.
How do you fix the hazel perpendicular to the wood?
You have a ladder of wood like this with cross pieces, noggins, and into the noggin you drill a hole.
Right, so straw
And then
hole.
you shape the hazel with a little knife to fit the hole, but because it's natural and you've done it with a knife instead of with a machine, there's some friction.
Yeah, it
there,
jams in.
and it
Yeah.
holds in tight. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll now do a demonstration of how you make a half bale. Ray's going to do the demo, aren't you, Ray? And I'll talk you through it.
Should we do this one?
Yeah. Okay. So
String knots.
So the first thing you want to think about is look at where, can you see that the bale is knotted here? Because the baling machine is a very simple machine. It's just a metal box which has a fixed width and a fixed height, and you can alter the length. And you alter the length partly by where you get it to knot on the strings, and that can also affect the density of it. But wherever it's knotted, if you find one knot, you'll also know where the other one is, and they're always close to the corners, one above each other. So in order to make this into 2 halves, we need 2 strings, one to go round that way and one to go round this way. And that's what Ray's doing at the moment. She's measuring the string. So she's measured one, so she doesn't need to measure the other, she's just using the same string to make an identical length. And then through this needle, which has got 2 holes in it, she's putting one string in from this direction and the other string from that direction. And the reason for that is that you're going to know which direction they have to go when they come out. So the needle is going to go through the bale where this string is, and it's going to come out where that string is as well, with two strings on. And what we need to be sure of is as those strings go through, they don't twist. Because guess what happens if they twist?
Can't separate the halves.
Exactly.
Sorry?
You can't.
Say it again.
If they twist, the 2 halves won't come apart.
Right.
And that's why Ray's got to be very careful. You see how she's splitting with the force? Her hand either side of the needle, so that the strings are kept separate. Now she's looked at the bale and she's decided on the halfway point, and now she's going to go through the bale. I'm helping her hold it because it's quite tough to get through. No. And also
Just
I'm
hold it.
standing to one side because we're not doing body piercing today. A bit low down. And this can take 2 or 3 goes to get it right until you get your eye in again.
Until the bale's stationary.
Yeah.
Is that the same?
Yeah.
No, that's a bit higher. Push. Give me a bit more. Yes, give me a bit more.
What go with strings now?
No.
Risk it for risk it.
Yeah. Okay.
50% chance of it working.
Okay. So if you remember the ways the string went in, one went in that way, so that's that one. So that's got to come out this way, which looks like it's the right one. So this one that went in this way has to go out that way. There you go. And now you take the needle out because of that piercing danger. Okay, so now what you want to do is put a loop on one end. It doesn't matter which end, but just one end of your string. A small loop, because if you make a big loop, then you'll need to have much more string to do it with. Take the other end and put it through, but you're not tying it at the moment. Okay? And make sure that it's lying in the same line as the other one. So you don't want it up here, and you don't want it down there. You want it in the same general area as the other one. Okay? So then you pull it tight, but we're not tying it at the moment, we're just pulling it tight, and then we're going to measure about a hand span away from that first loop. Well, my hand span, so for you that sort of distance. About that distance is about 7 inches. And at that point we put another loop. So what we're tying is a trucker's knot, basically, the same knot that they use for lorry straps, and which gives us the chance of making a ratchet. So now we've gone through our first loop and we go back through our second loop, and then we can ratchet it. And by putting your body against the back of the bale, you can pull this really tight. Now what we want is for this new string to be at least as tight as the old string, but actually we've got it tighter. But it wants to be at least as tight. Otherwise, when we take the old string off, this bale that we've made will not be as dense. Okay? And then, without letting go of the tension,
It's just a machine to
tie
half-bales.
around twice security the other side, and then we flip the bale over so that we can do the same for the other string. Would anyone like to have a go at that? Yes? Great.
What's wrong with having?
Anyone else?
What's wrong with having the machine to be just to make half-bales?
A machine to what?
To make half-size bales.
Because our experience is that they don't make the right size halves.
Ah.
They come out
Your
at...
halves may be slightly different.
Yeah. And so we purpose make the halves for the space that we've got. Because this is a natural material, the length of this bale isn't quite the same as the length of that one, or this one.
Yeah, that's
So
nice.
we're having to put them together like a dry stone wall. So we end up with a space that we call a half, but that bit might be different to the one on the other end. So we have to make the bales to fit the
Yeah,
space we've got.
that sounds okay.
Great. So here's your needle. So the first thing you need to do is measure your twine,
Right.
which is there. So sit, grab it from here. So yes, twice that. Once, twice, yes, twice the width. Once, twice, yes. And then another length to the knot itself,
Right.
to tie the knot. So
Yes, sir.
at least the same as the width again, and maybe a little bit more, just so you've got some room.
Absolutely
That's it.
terrible at tying knots.
That's all right. I'm here to help you.
Fantastic, having got I need it.
Okay. Ray, what have you done with the
Can't stand it.
the knife? Okay. So cut that in half. Okay. Now keep those in your hand and do exactly what you're doing. Yes. Cut two of them. So we're just getting two identical. So obviously, if we wanted a half that was a bit less than the actual half, the these two strings would have to be slightly different in length, one a bit shorter and one a bit longer to accommodate that. Okay? So, now, the first thing you want to do is think about your needle with the handle facing down. Because if you've got it like that, the holes are in the wrong orientation. So you want to thread it in that way, as though it's going to go through the bale like that. Yep. Okay. Yeah, so one from that direction. Yes, great. From that direction. Have you done sewing before?
No,
Oh, you're doing quite well
I
then.
think it's because it's giant and I can see it clearly.
No, it's the same principle.
Right, so do we tie anything
Okay,
around the
you
top
don't
here?
tie anything at all. What you do now is you put your fingers in there so that the two strings can't come apart, and you move your fingers, so you might hold it like this for now. Move your fingers down to the end like that, so that you've kept them separate all the way.
Okay.
Perfect, he's a natural, isn't he? Okay, now, we don't need to do any measuring here. I'll just show them on the other side. But you see where we tied this, it started pulling the bale apart there. And that now tells us where our needle needs to go, because it has to be directly above it. So that now gives you the location for your needle. So find where that is, and then you follow that straight up, and that's where you want to put the needle just above that string. Yeah? So just push it in a little bit so that the ends are caught. Okay, now make sure that your strings are either side and yeah. Now whatever you do, don't let go of those strings. Now, I think you need to come this way a little bit.
Oh, come to yourself.
Yeah. And now you want to pull this a little bit so that it's going, you want to go straight through the bale, and you want to end up coming out directly above that hole and on the string. Okay? That's great. That's a good location. It's a bit low.
Should I,
So pull it back again.
would you start with one?
Yeah, and then just drop your hand a bit to aim it upwards a little bit. Yeah.
I think it's a really useful
Right, so
application.
what that's done is it's followed its same pattern.
Right, yeah.
And your strings are going to fall
Yeah,
in.
so take it straight out, all the way out. Just pull the strings through a little bit more. Okay.
What's her name? Pat? Is it Pat? Barbara. Did you invent this bit,
Yeah,
Barbara?
that's good. No, I haven't invented anything. No, I went and learnt about it and just adapted
So
things.
don't let go of the strings yet. Just push it a bit further.
Push it. So you need to push it far enough that you can see the strings coming out. Now you mustn't let go of your side.
Okay.
Okay? Because what happens in the excitement is that you let go of this and you start doing that, and then these two strings get twisted up. So don't do that.
Okay.
So your partner would look at these strings and say, this one went in that way, so it's got to come this way. And is that?
Yeah, just pull in there.
Whoa, that's lucky. Okay.
It's good management.
That way. So do you want to do that one, Ray? Do you want to do this one, Cam?
Yeah.
Now, before you do anything, take the needle out for safety. Because you'll be surprised how many people wander past looking at what you're doing and get pierced. If you're not careful. Grand. Now, do you remember what we did with a loop on one end first of all?
Yeah, no, this is where I might struggle a little bit.
Yep, that's alright. So use far less
Even with something
twine.
as basic as a loop.
Yeah, just double it over
Yep.
and then tie a knot in it as if it's one piece of string.
Yeah,
Right.
that's it. Hold the two ends together. Well, hold on. I'll show you. Hold the two ends together like that. Hold that like one piece of string, and then that piece of string round your finger like that and back through itself. Like that, yeah?
Okay.
Yep, you've got it. Now it's just the fiddly
Get my
bit of
finger out
getting
of
your
the way.
finger out of the way,
Yeah.
yes. Pull it tight, keep your hold with these two. Pull it tight, yes. There we go. There you go, well done.
And the same with the other?
Yep. So first of all, string that through there. That's it, you've done it.
Oh.
And pulled it out again. That's it. Okay. Line your string up, make sure it's lying in the right place. Yep. Yep. Now, always tie the knot on a flat surface. Don't tie it on the corner or on the end. So pull that tight. So in order to pull it tight, you need to pull that way.
Right.
Yeah. So pull that string that way.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So now, before you do any tightening, you want to measure away
Yep.
from that handspan or my handspan. Yeah.
Yep.
Grab that string. Yep. Let go of that first one and tie another loop there.
Right, so now I can pull this one back through
Yes.
in order to do that.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So you've got enough room to do it. That's it. Oh yes, you're getting very good at those knots all of a sudden. Well done. Yeah, it wasn't difficult, was it?
No, it wasn't.
I think a lot of these things, when you think you can't do something, it's just needing somebody to show you, and then you can do it. It's just
Yeah.
having a decent teacher, that's all.
Yeah.
And most people can do most things that way.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
So you've gone through that one. Now
and
you're
then I
going
have
to
to
go.
come back through this to,
Yeah.
to wrap.
Yeah. That's it. So now your best position for pulling on that is here. So that you can push against the bale, and Ray can push in her direction, and you can pull apart and get that nice and tight. Yep. So now what you're trying to do is to make it as tight as the new one on the bottom. So they want to be the same. What happens if they're not as tight as each other? Yes, we get a funny shaped bale. Yeah, we get a wedge shape.
I think that's about there.
Yep, that feels good. Yep, just give it one more tug for luck. And then, now where it comes through this loop, you want to grab it like that, so that you can let go with that hand. Yeah, where it comes through that loop, so it can't come undone. And then take the end and go behind the two new strings and back through itself. So back through there. Hold on. Through and through and back
Right.
through there. Yep. So pull that tight without letting go with your thumb and finger. Pull it this way so that it's pulling right onto the loop. Yep, that's it. And then do that one more time for security.
Right, so that was coming over and then
That's right.
like
And
this.
just make sure that you don't tie it onto the original string of the bale.
Yes.
Yep, which you almost did. Because that will cause us problems. Yep.
And then this is coming this way.
Yeah, back to itself. That's it. And put it tight onto the... Great, he's a natural, folks. Okay, and then we'll just cut these ends off. Oop.
We're leaving on these days.
Okay, we'll leave these ends on. And we'll look for... Yes, we had working with our friend Stefano in Italy. He said, why do we cut these off? Because where are they going to go? They're only going to go to landfill, so we may as well leave them in the wall.
I don't know. We do actually use
We do use quite a few of these, to be honest, yes. Okay, so now, the moment of truth.
Would you like to do the honours card?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So, we look for where the knots are in the original string.
So the pink one.
Yep. And just
So,
cut.
and make sure you only cut the original, not the new ones. Yes?
Yeah.
And the one below.
It's exciting. It's like launching a ship.
Yes. Okay. Now grab the knot and pull the string off, if you can.
It's about there.
Which way is it going?
In the middle.
So this one's going this way. That one's going that way.
Yeah. Grab it by the knot and pull it.
Ah, right.
Yeah. Keep pulling. That's it. Okay. So we keep these because these are very useful for the next one we do, but we might cut the knot off. And that's why we've cut it at the knot, because otherwise you've got a knot in the middle of your string and that's useless. So always cut it by the knot and then you can use the string again. Okay, now we do need another person here now.
A midwife preferably.
Yes. Yes.
They're not 9 months pregnant.
I do hope midnight.
Great.
No, you're
Come on,
spelling
Stevie.
right.
Grab that. You've done the work, you can have the satisfaction. Now we've got to see whether it's worse. So try and pull that bale apart if you can.
Oh yeah, you can feel it straight away.
Yeah?
Go on then.
Okay.
Whapping does it need a wobble? Is it a wobble and
Yeah.
pull technique?
It's much heavier than the bales you would get for horses. So the only last thing you've got to do is tidy up this end to make it flat. Like the other one. Can you hear that sound? Very dull sound. That's the sound of a bale that's under compression. And when we do our load-bearing buildings without a framework, after we've compressed the roof down, you're listening for that dull sound on the walls as you bang them, and that tells you that you've got good compression. Thank you very much.